let's go back. In the beginning of this research, and we're talking now specifically about the female Illuminati research here, I kept on worrying because I went so deeply into the Book of Enoch, and remember, you're talking about the Atlantis book being a tiny, tiny fragment of what I really discovered. I tried to bung even some more on the appendices pages. I tried to bung some more information into a few interviews, but even then it was at like 20% of what I was mulling over in my own mind. And one of the most incredible things that I couldn't get out of my mind for all those years, and I had to perpetually keep putting it on the back burner, was this paragraph, chapter 15 of the Book of Enoch, where the fallen angels are first basically addressed. The Zaziel and the whole 200 of them, and there's other books as well. There's so many books. Book of Jasher, there's Eastern books, there's the Popol Vuh, there's even the Bible, the Genesis.
The two Adams?
Yes, exactly. Exact Corinthians, exactly. So it's not limited. There's plenty of information. However, the one passage, though, that really tells you that something immense took place is that famous passage, and it's on my Female Illuminati website. Everybody can go and read it if they've never heard of it before, where they're talking about the sons of God, so-called fallen angels, coming onto the daughters of men and bearing children with them. Right? This is the famous. All the biblicists know it. All the biblical scholars know it. It's been gone over 1,000,000 times. Books have been written, and so you're looking at this, and yet something kept twigging in my mind. I don't know what it is, but there is an oversight. There's an omission in all the other research, and that is, the omission is this: nowhere in the Book of Enoch or in any of the other apocryphal works, or the Book of Genesis for that matter, that speak about this interaction between the Anakim, the Anunnaki. I don't care if you go to the Sumerian script, I don't care where you go. There is no information that there was resistance on part of the women who became the daughters of the Nephilim. Now, I don't know, maybe it's nothing, but the point is, I would say, where's the fighting? Where's the men rising up to fight back, to save their women? Where's the women resisting arrest, so to speak? Where is there anecdotes about that? You have everything else, but you don't have that. Now, as most scholars do, you just bypass it and assume that these women, were basically abducted and forced against their will. But the trouble is, it doesn't say that. And therefore, and I admit it is speculative. I admit publicly it is pure speculation. But speculation can go a long bloody way. Then we speculate. What happens? This is just a question now. What happens if the women went with them willingly? And as a matter of fact, the Book of Enoch and other scriptures actually hint that that is the case. They say that the daughters found these people, found these fallen angels types, this group, the Nephilim, comely, attractive. I even beat that to death in my Atlantis book when I talked about how the women, another group of women, not the women we're talking about, but the daughters of the Lemurians saved mankind, saved the Adams, because they found the Lemurian sons of the serpent comely and listened to their counsel and helped the Adams become free to set up the civilization later of Lemuria. And as a matter of fact, not only that, but the very word Murias, or Lemuria, means motherland of humanity. The motherland of humanity. The land of the immortal serpents. So wherever we go, yes. This is known. It's known as Silipatarkan in Tamil, because it was meant to be, south of India and down there near Australia. This is where they think the Lemurian culture was strong. Oceania, what have you. So everywhere you go, you see the serpent symbol. It's ubiquitous, used by both sides, which of course complicates the symbolism, but there you have it. And you have this good, powerful coterie of women who decided to realize that they were enslaved, and so in other words, these books insist that there was a attraction. Well, then I'm saying to myself, if that was the case, then couldn't there also be on the other side an attraction? Couldn't there have been some of these women who didn't want to leave with Lemur and liked what the sorcerers of Atlantis were doing, and actually were part of that structure, that infrastructure? And what do you know? The Sumerian records actually indicate that this is in fact the case. So if we then go to the next step, if we now are assuming, for argument's sake, that a group of women, just like one group left and went towards freedom, another group stayed behind. This is the group that I am now interested in. That this is a female coterie who are also very attracted to this original Nephilim. And why? Because of their power, because of their technology, because of their looks, or I don't know what. Let's just keep that in abatement for a minute. We're just assuming that one group did, in fact, collude with the enemy, right? Okay. Then we move next to the next step. What? Because remember, for every crime, there's a motive. And if you are talking about a group of women who would literally collude with an enemy and basically betray the whole human race. There has to be a bloody good motive for that. And that's where a lot of other people would just, pack it in and they wouldn't be able to grasp it. But I think I know what it is. I think I know what it is. And it has to do with the female psyche. So, because remember, there's an old scientific axiom, by the way. I don't know if you know it, but it's been pointed out by some of the most senior scientists of the world. And that is that no theory in science has any validity whatsoever unless you can see it in action today. So they're talking, and of course, let's think about the Big Bang. Let's put it in the context of the Big Bang. All the refuters of the Big Bang, and some of these are the most prestigious scientists that have ever lived or have lived, that's one of their arguments. Since we don't see any such event cosmologically taking place today, it's very spurious to be talking about that one happened in so-called hypothetical past. This is the kind of way they frame their science, and it's very strong. It's very, very strong. If a scientific event is capable of happening, then it must be seen to be happening now. In the atomic realm or wherever you look, we must see evidence of it today. When you don't, it doesn't mean that you don't speculate. It just means that that cannot be moved to the level of true fact or true theory. Well, the same thing goes with what I'm saying. If I want to crack,
I feel that way about Darwin, actually.
Oh, I was going to say that as well. You're right. This is one of the bugbears of the Darwinian, and they themselves know it. It's a weak point. So now if you shift over to psychology of humankind, I would say the same thing. If I'm trying to discover or understand what was going on in the psyche of these particular women, I then must look into the world and find its corollary here. I must be able to do that, and I do find it, and it's called envy. And it's purely the kind of envy I'm now going to describe is unfortunately, although some men do have it, a version of it, it is almost entirely a female complex, what we're going to describe now. I won't be long-winded about it. I'll just make it very short, but people can research this if they want. It's bona fide. Just go and ask any psychologist, and many of these psychologists are women, so this is not some misogynist statement I'm going to make. What I've been studying and reading comes out of the works of the latest psychologists, and many of them are women. And they claim that there are certain women in the world who have not only the famous father complex and what have you, but we know that nature, Mother Nature, has made the woman physically weaker and with less endurance and less questing ability than the male. Not all women, obviously, I'm speaking generally, but in general, even children, a young infant kid can easily beat the same age girl in a fight. So this is nature has done this. We don't even need to go into the reasons why. This is just the way it is. That man has the tensile strength. He's got the muscular strength. He's got the sense of endurance, and he's got the tenaciousness, to hunt and to kill and to deal with the blood and to persist and to fight off enemies. He's physically stronger, in other words.
Okay.
But by definition, the female of the species, the sex, female species, is weaker physically. Now, the healthy woman is accepting this. I'm weaker, I support the male. I'm in the tribe, they do what they do, I do what I do because I've got other strength. I've got psychological strength. I've got other kinds of strength. But the neurotic woman isn't like that. The neurotic woman actually blames nature and ultimately then transfers hatred onto males for the very strength that they have because they believe that they're weaker. And some women embody a neurotic hatred of themselves and also a neurotic hatred towards men and a neurotic nature towards God or towards nature for the fact that they've been born weaker. That's it.
And maybe they transfer that onto that envy of man's nature being stronger. It can be eroticized almost for a woman because I've heard women say that they find a strong man, a stronger man, more erotic. So maybe that envy is sort of displaced or replaced.
Oh yes, and the envy itself can have good aspects as well. What I'm just being very, very general here, right? Because other people can fill in the blanks and think about this, give it some thought. As far as I'm concerned, there are two kinds of women. They're seen today, and they must have been there in the ancient world, and I'm damn sure they were. There's the woman who admires the male for his strength and has a complete understanding of her own powers and her own strength and her own abilities. The strength to bear children, the strength to be there for the men when they're wounded or when they're having a difficult time emotionally, and so on. And the strength to deal even with other women. Then you have the neurotic woman. There's no reason to believe that this neurotic kind of woman is only a product of, the modern world. I think that's a mistake. I believe that this person, these kinds of women, so when these Nephilim came here, and they sent their little groups to visit, I think, see, a lot of the legends tell us that when they first came, they appeared to be gods. They appeared to be doing good. This is the only reason for this is because they were scanning the shit out of everybody. They were checking out the tribes. And they brought a lot of them to Atlantis. But before they did that, they were curious. They were finding out where the weak spots were. So in the beginning, these contingents went around, and they sussed it. They sussed up. They were not only reading these people of the earth, our indigenous ancestors, pre-visitation ancestors, they were sizing them up not only biologically, but psychologically. And they suddenly came upon this fact, that when they interview some of these women, and they interview them deeply, they talk to them, they find out. And remember, these people appear to be the gods, man. These people appear to be the angels from heaven, all right? So you're doing a lot of talking about your problems to these people. And so they are suddenly working out through the years that there are these women who have this neurotic animosity to the fact that nature has made them the weaker sex, and they can't do this and they can't do that and what have you. It's this kind of woman, I believe, that then was seduced by the Nephilim and went willingly with the Nephilim. Because what did the Nephilim have that could in fact equal the male strength? Technology. Technology has always been about that. For instance, if I went anywhere now, if you and me went to some primitive tribe, God knows where, and showed them a computer screen, they've never seen this before, and we're showing them through satellite images of New York City with everybody walking there in real time, and I was able to tell you, and you were able to tell these people, you had a translator there, that with a push of the button, I can kill all these people walking here. Now that is some bloody power, right? And that's the kind of technology that when these women were introduced to it, they became very enamored by it because they already had the subconscious need to rival the muscular strength of the male and the power to wipe out huge groups of people, to do all sorts of crazy stuff, let alone flying around in the spaceships, and just the physical look at the weaponry that they had and all the rest of it. I think absolutely mesmerized these women, and they became willing servants of this power. And then in reward for their allegiance, for the reward, this particular sisterhood that we're talking about was given incredible dominion over the world for various reasons. They were seduced, they were initiated into the power of technology, and I'll be proving this. There's not going to be any doubt in it when people, look at what I'm producing here. They did get seduced by it, and they were given dominion over cities and countries and what have you in the world. They were given this kind of dominion in response to their collusion, right? And this is one of the reasons why the symbol for DNA has always been serpentine, and the serpentine symbol equals the female. In fact, a very hieroglyphic in Egyptian for a woman is a serpent. And then you take it to the next step and say, then why is it that the caduceus of Hermes and the symbols for the DNA is also serpentine? Whether you know it or not, you're looking at a female symbol every time you look at a DNA spiral.
Hermes being the winged messenger of the gods too?
Yes, but there's more to this than meets the eye. The symbol that he's carrying is actually a female symbol, by the way. And I'll have to draw more pictures about that as later on in the actual program that we're doing. But
and
in the Norse, in the legends of Ireland, the people who read my Atlantis book, they'll realize that there was a moment after the Great War of the Gods where the queens of Ireland called the people together. And I have the quote in which they talk about the future and they talk about the loss of virtue. And in the queen, her name is Bave, by the way. This goddess stands up and says, in the future, men will be strengthless, right? Judges will give false testimonies. Men will be strengthless and women shameless. Now this is 5,000 years BC. In the Norse Volupsa, in the Edda, you have the queen there also saying about the sisters of blood, the sisters who will go with other men, right? Who will deceive their husbands and deceive their tribes and slaughter their own sons and put their sons up and daughters up for slaughter, right? So in the ancient times,
men today are more feminine and vice versa because of the mass finale and everything. Yeah.